Yeah. And that never gets old, folks. Love to take him out with the rear gun here if we can. Got him. Gotcha. That helps save the garrison there. Greetings and salutations, fellow pilots. In this video, I will be featuring the Blohm und Voss P.215.02, a German multirole fighter, Tier 10. Quite an interesting looking aircraft. Pretty sure Batman may have this in the Batcave. This aircraft features four 20mm cannons that do 200 damage per second, with a rate of fire of 700 rounds per minute, and an effective firing range of 800 meters. Love the four 20mm cannons. Aircraft also has two 13mm machine guns and a turret that do 96 damage with an effective firing range of 700 meters, field of fire 55, gun elevation 60, gun depression minus 20. You see the rear gun there. There are actually 3 crewmen in this aircraft. Of course, there are only 2 that you have over here. But there are 2 in the front, and then you have the gunner in the back there. This aircraft also has 56 ram rockets, which are fired in a salvo fashion, and they are effective against aircraft. Most particularly when you are directly behind the enemy aircraft, or you are going head-on with the aircraft. Those are the best times to fire. You could do a deflection shot with them, but boy, that's pretty difficult shooting. But they do 200 damage each within a 25-meter radius. You can use them to take out ground targets, although it can not as effective as the 4 WGR-210 rockets that do 2,000 damage each within a 55-meter radius. So the BV P.215.02 has high airspeed and a long-lasting boost. It's a 20-second boost. And to accentuate that high airspeed, because remember it is not very high airspeed, it's just high airspeed, so there is room for improvement. I have selected Engine Tuning 4, which increases engine power by 5%. That helps us maintain our speed in turns and in the climbs. Also Polished Covering, which increases the top airspeed by 3%. I've also selected Ordnance Delivery Site 4, which increases by 50% the accuracy of bombs and rockets. My thought process mainly in selecting Ordnance Delivery Site is I really wanted to increase the effectiveness of our salvo-fired rockets. And because they are very effective against aircraft if you can hit the enemy aircraft, but it can be sometimes very difficult even with these salvo-fired rockets. So I'm hoping that Ordnance Delivery Site 4 will assist in that. It says it does. In terms of pilot skills, I have selected Engine Guru 1, which increases engine thrust by 3%. That improves our acceleration. I have selected Expert Rocketeer, again trying to enhance the effectiveness of our salvo-fired rockets against other aircraft. Significantly increases the chance of directly hitting an aircraft with rockets. To be honest, I'm just not completely sure how effective Expert Rocketeer is. I don't know that I've seen a huge increase in hitting aircraft with the salvo-fired rockets with Expert Rocketeer, but it's kind of, it's very subjective. It's hard to tell for sure. To increase the effectiveness of our engine tuning 4 and our polished covering, I have gone with Aerodynamics Expert, which will increase the effectiveness of those two upgrades by 40%. I've also selected Aerobatics Expert, which increases maneuverability in all axes by 2%. This aircraft is very ineffective in maneuvering combat, but I did want to give it some maneuverability increase to assist in that regard. But we're never going to make it a good turning or good maneuvering aircraft. It's just kind of more of a lumbering giant. You can see that it almost fills up. I'm fully zoomed out, but it almost fills up our screen here. So it's a large aircraft. Even says it has large dimensions. In terms of our rear gunner, I have gone with Armorer, which increases the burst length of a turret by 20%, and Ballistics Expert, which increases the firing range of our turret by 15% and the effect of turret stabilization by 20%. Of course, unfortunately, this aircraft cannot equip turret stabilization. I wish it could, but it can't. I had one extra skill point, so I went with Endurance to bring our gunner back to health. There's nothing worse than when you have an aircraft on your tail chewing on you and it takes out your gunner. You want to be able to restore that gunner to health so you can continue firing on that threat. In terms of ammunition, I'm using universal ammunition, which has equal chance of fire and critical damage. For consumables, I have gone with automatic engine restarter. This aircraft does have vulnerable engines, and our engine is our lifeblood. In terms of being able to escape out of trouble, got to have that engine running. Aircraft is a big old target up there. It's got large dimensions, so the chances we're going to have critical damage to wings and tail pretty significant. So I did go with Control Surface Auto Trim for that purpose. And this aircraft, I've noticed, does tend to catch on fire. And so I did go with automatic fire extinguisher as well. All three of those consumables are gold consumables that have 60-second cooldowns and activate automatically. You don't have to think about it. Their non-gold versions have 90-second cooldowns and activate manually instead of automatically. I really just equip the gold consumables for their automatic characteristic because I prefer to be concentrating on flying the plane and getting rounds, bombs, and rockets on their targets versus having to push buttons with consumables. So that's why I really go with the gold consumables on those. In terms of the aircraft specifications, these all expanded here for you. Optimum altitude is 2,000 meters, so it's kind of a high medium altitude aircraft. Optimum airspeed 550 kilometers per hour. Its greatest weakness is its maneuverability, and so the average time to turn 360 degrees is 14 seconds. So, watch the paint dry and then you might be turned. Top speed at best altitude is 960 kilometers per hour. Maximum dive speed 1100 kilometers per hour. That's really fast. In terms of paint schemes, currently looking at marine. This is summer, winter, and desert. Probably desert is my favorite. I've got to say, the German aircraft usually have fantastic paint schemes, but the paint schemes for this particular aircraft are so-so. Not the best that I've seen among the German aircraft. Alright, so what we are going to do now is head over to World of Warplanes website and compare the BV P.215.02 to its other Tier 10 multi-role fighter peers. So let's do that now. Okay, so we are on World of Warplanes website using their Compare Aircraft tool, and I've lined up the various different Tier 10 multi-role aircraft to compare against the P.215.02. First up, we have the Kyushu J7W3 and the Chanswald F7U Cutlass. Looking at gun armaments, it is indicated that the J7W3 is significantly superior to the P.215.02, whereas the Cutlass is slightly inferior. So let's, examine a little bit closer as to why that may be. So if you take all the cannons of the P.215.02, add up their collective damage, you get 800 damage per second. In comparison, the J7W3's armaments do a total collective damage of 1200 damage per second. So that is a significant difference between those two and why the J7W3 is said to be so superior. Now I will say about the J7W3 that its effective firing range for its armaments is only 640 meters, whereas the armaments for the P.215.02 are 800 meters. So, if you're doing a head-on attack, you're going to be able to fire first and put rounds on the target first if you're in the P.215.02. In terms of the F7U, its collective damage per second is 720 as compared to the 800 of the P.215.02. So that's why it's indicated to be slightly inferior. It does have a 20 meter advantage in terms of effective firing range, but that's not a significant difference. In terms of bombs and rockets, this is where the P.215.02 is heads above the J7W3 and the F7U. Total collective damage for the P.215.02's bombs and rockets is 19,200. Versus for the J7W3, it's only 8,800, and for the F7U, it is 20,800. But having said that, the F7U does lack rockets, so that's its weakness. If we look at the F7U, it only has 4 bombs, no rockets. So the P.215.02 has more versatility in that regard. In terms of survivability, the P.215.02 has 200 more hit points than the J7W3 and 100 more than the F7U. So better survivability in the P.215.02. Top speed at best altitude. P.215.02 outclasses the J7W3 by looks like about 80 or 90 kilometers per hour. However, the F7U has 100 kilometers per hour on the P.215.02. In terms of average time to turn 360 degrees, which is the P.215.02's biggest weakness, the J7W3 has a 4.1 second advantage over the P.215.02. So that is a huge advantage. So if you're in a P.215.02, do not get in any type of turning dogfight with a J7W3. The F7U has a 1.3 second turning advantage over the P.215.02. Still, I mean, even 1.3 seconds can be significant in a turning, confrontation. Rate of roll, the P.215.02 is outclassed by both the J7W3 and the F7U. Not hugely so, but significant enough to mention. Stall speed. The P.215.02 will stall much sooner than the J7W3 and sooner than the F7U. And that's a problem in the P.215.02 is that high stall speed. Optimum altitude, the P.215.02, as most German aircraft tend to have the altitude advantage, has a 400 meter altitude advantage over the J7W3 and a 200 meter advantage over the F7U. Rate of climb, the J7W3 and the F7U will outclimb the P.215.02. Moving on, next up we have the Republic F-84 Thunderstreak and the Alexeyev I-215 Russian aircraft. In terms of gun armaments, the P.215.02 significantly outclassing the Thunderstreak, which basically only has machine guns, and however the I-215 is ever so slightly outclassing the P.215.02. Again, 800 damage per second for the P.215.02 versus the F-84. F only 480 damage per second and not as long an effective firing range. In terms of the I-215, it does only 580 damage per second. However, its armaments have an effective firing range of 1,149 meters, which is probably why it is slightly outclassing the P.215.02. That's a huge advantage that the I-215 has to be able to have such a long effective firing range. Moving on to bombs and rockets, we see that the P.215.02 outclasses the Thunderstreak. We see that the Thunderstreak outclasses the P.215.02, which is no surprise. The American multi-roles tend to do very well in terms of their bombs and rockets. Collective damage from bombs and rockets for the P.215.02 is 19,200 versus 27,000 for the F-84F. However, the I-215 is significantly outclassed by the 215.02. Its maximum damage, collective damage, is 10,400 versus the 19,200 of the P.215.02. Moving on to hit points, again the P.215.02 having higher hit points than either the Thunderstreak or the I-215. Top speed at best altitude, the P.215.02 having a slight advantage there, not a huge advantage, but a slight advantage. Maneuverability, again, the P.215.02 just really stinks at maneuvering. So the Thunderstreak and the I-215 both outclassing the P.215.02 significantly so in time to turn 360 degrees. Stall speed, the same for the P.215.02 and the I-215. However, the P.215.02 will stall sooner than the Thunderstreak. Optimum altitude, P.215.02 has a 200 meter advantage over the Thunderstreak and a 400 meter advantage over the P.215.02. Rate of climb, both the Thunderstreak and the I-215 will outclimb the P.215.02 in terms of rate of climb, but remember, not altitude. So they're only going to get away so far before the P.215.02 is going to be able to catch up to them. All right, so I hope that helps put the P.215.02 in context with its Tier 10 peers. We're back here in the hangar, and having reviewed this aircraft's my build for it, its specifications, and having compared it to other Tier 10 multi-role fighters, let's head into a battle and see how it actually performs. Okay, so we'll be fighting over the Albion Iron Will Theater of Operation. We'll head first to the command center and try to get that secure.
You are approaching the area of combat operations. Be ready.
Then we'll head to either the garrison to the southwest or to the airfield at center map. Problem with that airfield is that it's usually just a hotbed of turn and burn fighters there, and this aircraft is not particularly well suited for that environment. Yeah, looks like we have another one in our midst here. Yep.
Show me what you can do, pilots. Let's roll.
So we've got a 20-second boost. Use that to head over here to the command center, but we will save some of that to get out of Dodge if we need to.
Stay alert, pilots. Large enemy force spotted over the airfield.
Wondering if maybe we can finish off this get it? Not quite, I don't think. We've got like one section over here to take care of, so we can't finish it off. And now we'll deal with some of these air defense aircraft. We almost got the command center here, but a little more work to do. Get rid of some of these anti-aircraft guns. Ah, something's on our tail. What is on our tail here? I think it's a low health air defense aircraft. If we could flip over here or finish it off. There we go. I think if we take out just even one of these anti-aircraft positions, that we may be able to finish this off. There we go. Don't have a lot of health left after all that, but got the job done. Let's see what's going on here at the airfield. Got 2 bombs, so we'll come in here and shoot these off. Okay, so it looks like they have the advantage right now. I think we need to do something with this airfield. Oh, there we go. As if on cue. Alright. Our opposite number here. Take care of. Love to take him out with the rear gun here if we can. Got him. That rear gun can do a number. Alright, so it looks like we have some ground attack aircraft over here, which fortunately are probably going to be able to take our garrison before I can get there, but we'll give it the old college try. Gotcha. That helps save the garrison there. Alright. Making good use of the rockets with this aircraft, so that's good. And we're out of rockets though. Well, we have a
Hang in there. You'll
more
soon
ground
be cut off
attack
from
based
support.
rockets.
I say again,
Boy, those are hard to hit
will not
anything.
be available.
If anything comes right at us though, we'll use it. I think that's our opposite number there. That, yeah. See if we can take it out again. Can catch up to it, that is. Almost in range.
We cannot support you any longer. The storm is too heavy. Do you copy? Over. We have complete control of the skies. Way to go. Keep it up. Victory is
Okay, got some ground attack aircraft here.
Be advised, the enemy is concentrating forces near the airfield. I'm proud of you, pilots. Head back
Okay,
home.
so we pulled it out. Very good. And let's see, number 1 spot on the team, Subjugator, Rocketeer, I think we actually got a few of those, Effective Fire, and Rear Cover. So we'll head back now to the After Action Report and take a look at the summary. See how we did overall. Alright, so 7 kills, 1 assist. Took out 2 ground targets, doing over 19,000 in damage to ground targets, which was really ultimately what allowed us to take the command center. So those, it wasn't much, but those were very important. Did over 6,200 in damage to aerial targets, and that was in about 7 minutes worth of time spent in battle. Rocketeer twice, rear cover once. Captured the 1 sector, the command center. Over 9,000 in combat points. So yeah, a very successful combat sortie there. Over 7,800 in experience points. 392 in free experience points. So there you have it, the BV P.215.02. What I like to affectionately call the Bat Plane. Well folks, I hope that you have thoroughly enjoyed this video as I have bringing it to you. And I hope that if you get an opportunity to fly the BV P.215.02 that you have great success in it.